Importance of salt. Salt in moderation is actually very important to your diet. But before we start, please don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell for you to be updated for the new video. Thank you. Now let's begin. Salt helps retain water in the body. Our bodies depend on electrolytes, including salt, to help do electrical motivations that control a large number of our body's capacities. To keep our bodies working as they should, our bodies need the best possible measure of electrolytes. Electrolytes trigger thirst system, which cause us to devour satisfactory measures of water. With this water, our kidneys can keep the suitable measure of electrolytes in our circulation system. The measure of water our bodies hold additionally sway pulse. Consider it, a great deal of bars and eateries give complimentary pungent bites. Why? They make you parched and needing to buy more beverages. Salt stimulates muscle contraction. Salt is imperative to the nerves, as it animates muscle compression. This will likewise help keep your muscles from squeezing. Salt additionally keeps calcium and different minerals in the circulation system. It likewise invigorates the adrenal organs. Salt is likewise significant in the counteraction of warmth surrender and sunstroke, which is essential to recall during sweltering summer months. Salt contains nutrients vital to the digestive system. Salt assumes an essential function in the cycles of assimilation and ingestion. Salt actuates a catalyst in the mouth called salivary amylase. Now, the salt permits your taste buds to taste the food. Salt additionally assumes a part in processing by assisting with separating food. Salt likewise makes hydrochloric corrosive. Hydrochloric corrosive is a significant stomach-related emission, which lines the stomach dividers. Salt really enables your body to process food. A lack of salt is hazardous. Sodium insufficiency is a well-being condition where a body neglects to get a sufficient flexibly of sodium. Sodium insufficiency can turn out to be incredibly pervasive in inordinate temperatures, which cause the body to sweat intensely, and examples of lack of hydration will set in. Sodium insufficiency can prompt stun if the circulatory strain is diminished too harshly. Salt is critical to acceptable healthful status. Too little can cause aggravations in tissue water and corrosive base parity, which is imperative to acceptable nourishment. Keep in mind, eats less excessively high in sodium can prompt high water maintenance and hypertension. By and large, salt is commonly non-toxic to grown-ups, if it is discharged appropriately. The most extreme measure of sodium that ought to be joined into a sound eating routine should go from 2,400 to 3,000 milligrams per day. The role of salt in food preservation. Salt is notable for its part as enhancing specialist and as food additive both in mechanical food preparing and home cooking. All things considered, salt shows diverse mechanical properties in food creation. Lack of hydration was the most punctual restoring measure, and, so as to protect nourishments during drying out, early civic establishments salted food sources to help dry up them. These days, this training is as yet utilized. Salt goes about as an additive by lessening the accessibility of water in nourishments, in this way denying microorganisms from utilizing accessible water as a supplement and diminishing enzymatic movement. The development of microbes and decay microorganisms is evaded or postponed within the site of salt. Clostridium perfringens and Clostridium botulinum are seriously restrained by salt. However, Staphylococcus aureus and Listeria monocytogenes are generally halotolerant. Salt can be added to food items to help with diminishing and forestalling microbial development. This might be accomplished either because of the bacteriostatic function of salt or due to its capacity to manage catalyst action, for instance, through its effect on the development of aging microorganisms. The primary systems answerable for the hindrance of microorganisms by salt incorporate cell plasmolysis, hindered breath, O-nitrophenol beta-galactoside hydrolysis, glucose usage, counteraction of substrate transport into the cells across cell layers, restricting oxygen dissolvability and impedance with compounds. Besides, sodium chloride may diminish enzymatic movement by denaturing chemicals, by decreasing their reactant exercises and by changing their cofactors. Salt can assist with broadening the time span of usability of relieved meat items, for example, dry restored ham, bacon and ham or canned fish, specifically, sardines, fish, mackerel or anchovies, among others. The technological role of salt in food production these days, the practical properties of salt in food preparing and food creation work out in a good way past taste. Indeed, salt assumes diverse innovative parts in food creation. Other than flavor, it has a significant job likewise in well-being and on textural properties. It likewise impacts the development of microorganisms engaged with maturation measures. Salt assumes a few primary functions in the handling of various nourishments. Meat and meat items, it builds the water-holding limit, softens crude meat and improves the authoritative of hitters in handled meats. Bread, it makes gluten more steady and less extensible and clingy, and it impacts the aging rate. Cheddar, it balances the microbiota, controlling the movement of starters and changing catalyst exercises, and it influences the cheddar's body surface by modifying protein structure. Canned nourishments, it can be utilized for cleaning fish before canning. Salt gives nourishments a pungent flavor, yet it can likewise improve different flavors, for example, fragrant notes. It adjusts pleasantness and smothers flavors, for example, harshness. Salt or better sodium chloride can likewise be a supplement hotspot for sodium, a basic supplement required by the body in modest quantities. Salt likewise assumes a part as surface enhancer. It alters the structure of proteins and alters the cooperation of proteins with different parts, for example, water and fat, which impacts the surface of nourishments. For instance, if the correct measure of salt is included, cheddar can have more body, meat can be juicier, and fish and breads can be firmer. Salt is additionally significant as an authoritative and emulsifying specialist. The new protein structure assists with holding the item together and assists with forestalling dampness and fat misfortune. This is significant, for instance, in prepared meats. The gelling capacity of food proteins is a significant utilitarian characteristic for food fabricating. The food business utilizes various proteins to create gels or gel-containing items which display different rheological properties, appearance and gel point. Gelation is an essential cycle in the preparing of different nourishments, specifically, meat and other meat items, bread and pastry kitchen mixtures, dairy items and fish items, among others. Salt, sugar and fat, remembered for the definitions of most food items, alter the properties gels, influencing the rheological and textural qualities of nourishments. Salting of meat and meat items. Salt is without a doubt the most antiquated known fixing, playing out various capacities in meat. Its expansion to hot dogs meat players is basically because of its action in lessening water action, working as bacteriostatic, controlling the development of pathogenic microorganisms. Nonetheless, salt has numerous different impacts of undeniable intrigue. Salt advances flavor and reduces pH, which causes an abatement in the isoelectric purpose of proteins and thusly a higher water-holding capacity. Guttafongia specifies that for salt groupings of 10%, most salt-touchy bacterial structures are repressed, while salt convergences of 5% just restrain anaerobic structures. All the more as of late, because of requests identified with buyer inclinations, the salt focus is utilized in meat items in the nations that are more mindful of purchasers' well-being doesn't surpass 3%. Notwithstanding, in numerous different nations, for example, Portugal, salt substance near 6% are as yet found in conventional wieners, in spite of the fact that there is a developing worry to lessen salt. Salt is likewise added to some meat and meat items to impact water holding limit and give the items a moister surface. Ionic quality, which is affected by salt substance, has a solid impact in gel arrangement. The utilization of around 2 to 3% sodium chloride in meat items is important to solubilize myofibrillar proteins. Thusly, salt improves surface. Salt can likewise assist with improving flavor and shading. It can influence the last flavor through the control of the biochemical and enzymatic responses all through aging. Bread and pastry shop items. Salt is significant for the bread shop industry since it can make mixture surface somewhat more grounded and more tight. Besides, it has an effect in the time frame of realistic usability of heated products, since it lessens water action. The primary capacity of salt in bread is to draw out the great flavors and veil the off flavors. Utilization levels are generally around 2%. Enactment may shift from nation to nation in light of the fact that the admission of a lot of salt is considered as a well-being hazard. Salt hinders concoction responses, including controlling the maturation pace of yeast and mixture advancement. Salt helps control yeast action and reinforces the protein grid that frames the piece structure of the bread. It is, hence, of most extreme significance that the salt is totally broken up in batters. Notwithstanding affecting flavor, salt likewise restrains aging because of the osmotic weight impact. Yeast cells will somewhat dry out because of the osmotic weight. The impact of salt on maturation can be utilized to control the aging cycle. Salt can be included, for example, to wipes to hinder the aging rate. Hindering maturation rate implies that less sugars are processed into acids. The outcome is that the pH of the mixture will be higher, and the covering shading will be more obscure. Salt likewise impacts chemical movement. Moreover, salt hardens the gluten. It has a molding impact on the mixture. More vulnerable flours could be fortified by including salt. It very well may be utilized to improve the dealing with properties of the mixture by diminishing the tenacity. Despite the fact that it fortifies the gluten, it postpones its development during blending. Salt stretches the blending time, so it is entirely expected to postpone the expansion of the salt to the blender. Quicker flour hydration is additionally observed with deferred salt. The motivation behind why salt hardens the gluten must be looked for in the way that gluten is made of adversely charged proteins. Contrarily charged particles will repulse and not draw in one another. It is accepted that the positive sodium particles Na+ of salt assume a function in bringing the protein atoms closer to one another. At long last, bread with no salt will likewise has an outside layer which is lighter in shading, given a similar heating time and broiler temperature. This can be clarified as follows. Salt will hinder aging, so when there is no salt, the yeast action will increment. For example, the yeast will utilize more sugar in a similar measure of time. Accordingly, there will be less sugars left in the batter, and the pH of the mixture will be lower, more acids will be shaped. Sugars play, along with proteins, dampness and warmth, a significant part in the Maillard response. This response is a synthetic and non-enzymatic searing response between an amino-corrosive or a protein with a free amino gathering and a diminishing sugar during the warm handling and capacity of nourishments. In this response, melanoidins are middle mixes, which are liable for the subsequent earthy colored shading. In any case, the Maillard response is additionally affected by pH. A higher pH will accelerate the Maillard response. Subsequently, for the situation where the pH is lower and where there are less sugars left, the shade of the hull is lighter. Other food items. Salt and milk proteins interface to give a fundamental water-restricting capacity. Moreover, salt goes about as a flavor enhancer and additive in cheeses. Truth be told, salt has three significant capacities in cheddar. It goes about as an additive, contributes straightforwardly to enhance, and is a wellspring of dietary sodium. Along with the ideal pH, water movement and redox potential, salt aids cheddar conservation by limiting waste and forestalling the development of microorganisms. Fish items or fishery and shellfish items incorporate all wild or cultivated seawater or freshwater fish, scavengers, mollusks and surimi, regardless of whether new, solidified, cooked, salted, dried, smoked, aged and marinated, just as sushi. Fish and shellfish have been recognized for being high-protein, low-calorie nourishments wealthy in fundamental polyunsaturated unsaturated fats. They are additionally viewed as an important wellspring of minerals and nutrients. Notwithstanding, they are very transient, primarily because of their inborn structure and natural surroundings. This reality has added to the turn of events and improvement of fish protecting techniques since antiquated occasions. These days, salt is as yet utilized for fish protection, fundamentally in creating nations, albeit most salted fish and shellfish items are gently salted, and for safeguarding different obstacles are utilized also. Salt kindnesses lipid oxidation, quickening rancidity and therefore influencing shading and flavor. Salting is a cycle utilized in the protection of a few fish items, for example, salted cod, ocean bream, chub mackerel and smoked salmon, among others. Cod, Gardus morhua L, is a white fish generally popularized as salted cod in Mediterranean nations. Diverse salting techniques might be utilized for cod salting, giving the last item unmistakable qualities. Generally matured herring is an ensured item in Denmark. Guillotined herrings are placed in plastic barrels with salt, sugar and a few flavors and saved for 3 years under refrigeration. This salting, maturing measure is significant mostly to deliver a very much aged item with a delicate consistency and a charming taste and smell. In the readiness of smoked fish items, for example, smoked salmon, salt likewise assumes a significant part, since it diminishes. The significant 5 dietary wellsprings of sodium in the USA are prepared to eat RTE nourishments, specifically, bread and moves, meat items, pizza, poultry and soups. Flavor improvement is one of the essential elements of salt in prepared and prepared-to-eat nourishments. Besides, salt is one of the devices utilized for safeguarding to control microbial development in the handling of vegetable products. Thank you for watching. Please like and share.